So I've been on a fantasy kick lately. Been reading a little bit of Brandon Sanderson. I just read my first V.E. Schwab book, and that's what we're going to talk about today. The book is The Fragile Threads of Power. And so when I picked this up, I grabbed it from the library. I've been curious about this author for a while. I know that this author is very popular, so I wanted to check him out. And I looked at the book. It didn't seem like it was the third in a series or anything like that. It said one of one on the internet, but apparently it is a spin-off or the second set in the Shades of Magic trilogy. But I read it without reading the first ones, and I felt like it really stood on its own 2 feet. I didn't feel like I needed to have read the other books to get into this story at all. It follows the story of there are 4 Londons: Black London, White London, Grey London, and Red London. And they've all been kind of separated. They're kind of I would say, different dimensions and somewhat closed off to each other, except for these certain magical people that can travel and open doors to go into them. In each realm, you have different people in charge. Some have more magic than others, and some are burnt out and have none. Right now, Black London is completely burnt out. There is no power there. It seems to be like a dead society or place. And the rest of the realms, like the gray and white and red, are kind of opening back up. The doors between these different Londons or dimensions had been closed with a purpose. And so it was to keep the magic in. But does magic ever really stay in? Is it beholden to anyone? How does it choose who is able to wield it and who is not? And the magical system in this is very elemental. Some people wield earth or fire or wind, and some can harness all of them, and some can open doors and are the most powerful magicians in the land. One of the Londons, it seems the power is waning and starting to die. And others, it seems it's starting to rise. And so you kind of bounce back and forth between the different kingdoms and the different Londons. This took me a little bit to get into it. I would say slow and low, that is the tempo, but I am kind of like that with most fantasy that I read, because there's a lot of world building, there's a lot of character building. You have to build this world of stories, especially because this is the first in what's going to be a trilogy. And I'm pretty excited for the next one. I really did enjoy my time with this book. I may have almost been 200 pages before I was fully invested, but I was intrigued the whole time. So I'm not saying I wasn't disinterested. I was never bored. It was just a lot of world building, a lot of characters, a lot of figuring out and trying to pay attention between the different Londons of what's going on where and what's going on here and this, that, and the other. In each London, you have different characters at the forefront. And we find, the fragility of the power of magic, the threads of power, and what have you, as the namesake of this book, of the ruling kingdoms, the unrest of the people, blaming the king for lack of magic, and there's wanting to overthrow the king. In one of the Londons, there's a society called the Hand who is trying to overthrow this king, Rye, because he is the king, apparently, that has no magic or no power, but yet he cannot be killed. So he has some sort of magic in him, it's just not prominent that he can really use. And so the people are looking for someone to blame and to overthrow. So it's a tale of deceit, but it's also how all these Londons are also kind of connected and how the magic goes. I think as we get into the second book, we're going to see more of that. And I think we're going to start to see maybe the one that is all burnt out of magic. Something's going to go on there. Something's going to awaken there. But in this book, nothing yet. So you have the magician characters. There are also pirates. So in the different Londons, you have one, there is a child queen. And then in the other, you have the magicless king. It mainly focuses on those two or the one London that has the child queen. And then you have the other one with the king that doesn't have supposedly any magic. So then you also have these other characters. And my 2 favorite characters in this were Delilah Bard, or Lila, who is a pirate, and she kicks a lot of butt. And then also this other character, Tess the Tinkerer, and she has this ability where she can see the threads of power. She can see them around people, and she can manipulate them and actually fix them and whatnot. She works in the shop where they repair things, magical items that have been broken. And she's quite the interesting character in her backstory, and she's gonna, I think, rise up to be quite the hero throughout this book. And I really liked the magical system in this. Like I said, I felt this book stood on its own 2 feet. I didn't feel like I had to have read the prior trilogy, although maybe I will go back and read it. I'm not really sure. It gives you enough backstory where you know what happened, and then you're fine in the setting that you're in. But I did enjoy the flow of this. Once I got into it, I couldn't stop reading it. It did take me quite a while, but I'm usually like that with fantasy books. So overall, my first V.E. Schwab book, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I would definitely read more from this author. I look forward to the next book in the series. I have no idea when it comes out, so I guess probably maybe next year. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. If you like fantasy with a lot of world building, if you've already read The Shades of Magic, then good for you. You're already on the track of this spin-off series. Even if you haven't, I still think it's good enough to stand on its own 2 feet, like I said. A lot of fun, a lot of world building, a lot of character building, cool magical system, very elemental. The characters are different and quirky and strange, and there's some fierce, strong women in this, so I love it. And the dynamic between the characters and the relationships is just, it's quite delightful, I must say. If you're a fan of fantasy books, the next video coming up will be about another fantasy book, so stick around, check it out. And if you had fun hanging out today, hit that subscribe button, come back, see me again, and we'll talk about more bookish things and weird stuff.